Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
All right, folks, welcome back. We told you about a story Friday that I want to bring to you now. There's a headline, though. Brian Fanney, state legislators' files are sought. This has to do with the Bureau of Legislative Research. Now, the current head or the director of the Bureau of Legislative Research is Marty Garrity, okay? And in an interview Friday, Marty Garrity, the director of the Bureau, said that there are requests related to an ongoing investigation from federal entities. I can only assume that means the FBI. Quote, we have generally been notified that we may be approached for confidential working papers of members. Now, Talk Business and Politics broke this story on on Friday is when I first saw this, which once again echoes what we heard in court when John Woods his attorney asked for a continuance to December because of ongoing federal investigators. We've had the reports of the FBI executing search warrants on the Central Arkansas Planning and Development District that is tasked with handling General Improvement Fund money. And now it looks like this FBI investigation, according to reports, is now spilled over, and they're trying to get the working papers, emails, and things like that between certain legislators and the Bureau of Legislative Research. Here now to join us, talking more about what all this means, is the former head of the Bureau of Legislative Research, Mr. David Ferguson joins us. David, welcome back to the program, sir.
Thank you. Hello, Paul. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm also thankful that you came on the show because you're an invaluable resource, having been a part of every law down there for decades. I mean, I'm sure some of them you don't want to take credit for, but I mean, you're there as a neutral arbiter, a resource. And so David, did you hear about this story of the FBI or some federal entity wanting documents from the Bureau of Legislative Research, and what are your thoughts on it?
Well, I saw the article in the Arkansas Democrat Gazette and the Talk Business article too. First of all, I think the Bureau is doing just what they need to be doing. If you're familiar with the Bureau of Legislative Research, they do all the research and the bill drafting for the legislature, and you might be thinking, well, they've got a bunch of attorneys. Why don't they go through and answer these requests? It's one of those things where they're certainly capable of doing it, but it would really put them in a bind because they're there to represent each legislator as they do their projects. And if in one instance you release information, they're going to think, well, you're being unfair to me. If you don't release information, somebody will say, well, you're trying to protect somebody. So it just would put them in a bind. So getting an outside counsel, they can be mad at the outside counsel instead of the Bureau staff that's just trying to serve them.
Yeah, and that is the initial that was the initial story. Talk Business and Politics, I think on Friday they said that, hey, this was just a routine thing where the Arkansas Legislative Council approves them asking to get an outside counsel to handle this. But, hey, that's an interesting take, okay? So you're saying this way none of the legislators that they're going to have to work with in the future, unless, I mean, who knows, maybe some of them go to jail, that they're not going to be mad at them. The outside counsel will decide. And of course, what do you know about the Freedom of Information Act concerning this and a criminal investigation? I mean, what if this is a criminal investigation?
Well, first of all, there's two laws. One is a Freedom of Information Act exemption for the working papers of legislature, and then the legislature came back and had another law that FOI exemption for everything that the Bureau, House, and Senate legislative audit holds that's related to a bill drafting request or an information request, research request. And that was done so that to share more information with staff without worrying that it gets out. Now, Arkansas protects it. Some states, once the bill is filed, all that information comes out. But there are also states that protect it. Let's see, what was the second part of that question?
Well, a criminal investigation. I mean, what happens when...
Oh, okay,
yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that once you have a criminal investigation, they're going to be able to come in and get it. If there's a certainly a subpoena they're going to end up having to answer that. But there's another piece to this legislation that's really quite confusing. Well, it just hadn't been tried. Not only is the information held by the Bureau and the other agencies exempt from the Freedom of Information Act, it goes on to say, and it is confidential. Well, what does that mean? How far can you protect it under that state law of being confidential? So that leads to be a little bit more of a fuzzy area, and it's just another good reason to have an outside counsel taking care of it.
So in your opinion, and I guess my question is, so is it possible, in your opinion, if the FBI is involved in a criminal investigation, is there a good chance that the emails that they're after, wind up in the government's possession, in the federal government's possession?
I think it will, but let me kind of take a sidestep here and say that everybody's talking about this being a General Improvement Fund grant investigation. The Bureau of Legislative Research is going to have none or almost no information about that, because they will prepare bills that says, here's how much money you transfer to this agency or entity, and then it's only after the legislature goes away that the legislator works individually with those agencies or entities to divvy out the money. So the Bureau really doesn't have anything to do with that. The only other thing I think that the FBI might want to find out is the Bureau maintains the email system for the legislators. Every one of them is at least offered an email account. Most of them use it, but they primarily use their own accounts, most of them, because they get so much email on these, they just don't even use them. But it's possible that they will be wanting to get into those email files of legislators.
That could have so I mean that's huge news. I had noticed. So the Bureau of Legislative Research actually administers the emails of the legislators, and so if that's the case, this could be a much broader investigation than general improvement funds, because you just said they really wouldn't have anything to do with general improvement funds because they would just help write the bill, and that's it. After that, that's up to the wink and a nod and the economic development community centers or whatever. So that's huge news,
yeah.
David.
Well, now that doesn't necessarily mean that the FBI isn't just covering their bases, trying to end an investigation and saying, well, we need to just cover our bases, find anything that might help us with the timeline, and just ask for these files. And there's a possibility that, say, a certain entity or a person is responsible for some funny money in a GIF. Well, did that legislator have other relationships with that person, and can we find anything else on that? So it could be GIF related, just as they're just trying to close out their books. But at this point, the FBI should know that staff would not have much of anything to do with it. Now, there's the other possibility, and we've seen this before, where you have an investigation of state legislators, and the investigation breeds some more investigations. And, so it could be about other bills or other research projects, timelines. Did somebody get involved in an employment or a contract before or after something happened? I'm not saying that it has broadened, but we've seen FBI investigations go into other things before. So, and I'm talking about the 1990s.
Okay. Yeah, can you elaborate on that? I mean, David Ferguson, ladies and gentlemen, former head of Bureau of Legislative Research. You were there for 30-plus years. Can you? What specifically are you referring to in the 90s?
Well, in the late 1990s, there was a session called Grab Fest. Huckabee was the governor, and the Democrats were in control, and they just run pretty much roughshod. And one of the pieces of legislation run through was one to create a guardian ad litem program within the Ministry Office of the Courts. Guardian ad litem had to do with representation of children, I think, in divorce cases. But what happened, because nobody had asked for it and the legislators created it, a number of legislators lined up along with some of their friends and got contracts to operate this program. And then that's when the FBI came in and started investigating that, and there was some legislators that went to prison. There's a bunch of them that didn't go because they were given being witnesses, and there were a lot of people being talked to, investigated. In fact, I tell people that during that time, there were so many worried legislators losing weight that I thought we had become a Weight Watchers group up there. But there's a big investigation. But what happened toward the end of it, it could have been totally independent, but because everybody was focused on these corruption charges, two more investigations popped up. One dealing with the sale of some property to a state agency by a legislator, and another one that dealt with trying to solicit bribes from greyhound racing dog owners.
Gosh.
And both of those got some guilty pleas in those. So other things popped out. So it could just be the final throes of an investigation at GIF, just covering the bases, or it could be an expansion into other things.
So you're saying, so this 1995 or 1997 power grab, the FBI investigated that, and you called it Grab Fest, and then they found more. That investigation led to other investigations. So, I mean, that's interesting, David. I mean, I got to tell you, because I was thinking to myself, kind of like you, why would the FBI be wanting the Bureau of Legislative Research if this is only about GIF? So you're saying, according to your opinion, and correct me if I'm wrong, two possibilities: the investigation's now broader, or they're wrapping the investigation up and they're just using these emails to try to get a solid timeline of what happened.
Yeah, they could. And of course, here's another wrinkle. They may have solved this since I left, but the Records Retention Act for the state government doesn't apply. At least when I was there, it did not apply to the legislature, and I wasn't able to get anybody interested in a retention policy. So basically, you could have one staff person that just kept their email box emptied out every day, and some would keep it for 2 or 3, 4 years without ever looking at it. So what exists and don't exist, I don't know that they would necessarily have a complete list. But
last question. So can you just elaborate just real quick on how the Bureau is in charge of the individual legislators' emails? I mean, does that mean the server is in the BLR's office? I mean, what can you tell us about that?
Yeah. Well, again, they could have. I left in 2012, and they could have changed it or given more authority to the House or Senate since then.
Okay.
So there could be changes, but it's on the server. It was at least on the server of the Bureau of Legislative Research, and it was even kept away from what is the computer services of the whole state, DIS or no, I can't think. But anyway, it was off of the main government thing, only on the legislative system. So the Bureau of Legislative Research maintains those accounts, sets up the accounts. If they say, hey, I've got trouble with my email, it's a bureau that goes in and takes care of it. They all are issued a government computer. Well, I think some of them decided not to have them, but pretty much everybody has a government computer. Something goes wrong with that, they come in and take care of that. So they provide computer services to the legislators.
Okay, and that's valuable information. And like I said, I mean, I don't know. That would mean that it got a lot more broad, and that would be why the BLR is now involved. It's the Bureau of Legislative Research, ladies and gentlemen, versus the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I don't think. I mean, I know who I would take in a fight. David Ferguson, my friend, I appreciate your service to our state. I appreciate you coming on the program. You're a wealth of knowledge, and you've certainly enlightened us here today.
Okay.
All right.
Have a good day.
Okay, be safe. Folks, we're going to take a break. The Liberty Machine, great information. The Liberty Machine rolls on back in a minute.